chillin', serial killing, pre-core villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star rated from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ on the ones and twos, by the name Beelzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over two, and prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' Crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to another toothy episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 326, recorded on Saturday, July 3rd, 2021. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the winner of the July poll pick, which is Jaws. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show tonight. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randy Gandy G. Landy. What's up, man?
Hey there, Chief.
Slamming a brewski live on camera. I love it. That's not a... You got the Narragansett?
I wish. They didn't have any at the local liquor emporium that I visited today. So I got this crazy throwback Yingling can.
Nice.
Seemed like the closest thing, too.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Well, here's to swimming with bow-legged women, my friend.
Hey, attaboy.
Mm-hmm. Last but not
What are you
least...
sipping in there? Oh, sorry.
Oh, I made an old-fashioned, but it looks spooky because it's in a ceramic shark mug. So
Yeah.
I'm really just drinking shark brain. That's what it is. It's delicious. Last but not least, calling in from my immediate left, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
What up, it's your boy, Bigger Boat Stains. The biggest boat.
You compensating for something? Obviously. Always compensating. You know me, I'm always compensating.
The proudest I've ever heard somebody say they're compensating. Goddamn right.
Always.
Let me tell you about all the things I have to compensate for. Go down the list.
You don't have enough time, buddy. Man, speaking of compensating for shit, we're a horror movie podcast. We are 326 episodes deep, and we're just now talking about Jaws.
Just now.
It's been a long time coming.
That feels like there's a good reason for that, though.
Yeah,
that's
it's true.
Yeah, we covered
Good
Jurassic
reason.
Park
I don't think
before we
our,
covered Jaws.
I don't think my Gansett or Yingling slamming ass is going to bring a whole lot new conversation to the Jaws table, but I'll do my damnedest here.
Well, my conversation's going to be completely original thoughts, so.
Same.
Oh boy, yeah, great. I'm so glad you guys are here to bring culture-altering takes.
Yep.
It is a lot of fun to talk about these classics, though, and even if we're not bringing anything new, I mean, this freaking movie being from 1975, it's been talked about to death, but I assume not everybody listening to this episode has done like hours of research on the movie Jaws, so I'm sure we'll be talking about
because I sure haven't.
Over the years, maybe accumulated to a couple
hours,
maybe. I don't know. We'll get into it.
We're really grading ourselves on a hell of a curve here, but all right.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into the main event, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick. All right. We got a new poll over on our Patreon website. It is our August poll pick. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this August. This is Randy's Takeover Month, which is something we've been doing. It's new this year, where one of us takes a turn picking all the movies for the poll of the month. Randy, what are we talking about this August?
Well, seeing as I've got a reputation to uphold, I decided to do what I'm best known for and really lean into the art house dog shit that everybody calls pretentious and really just get in there, find some weirdo fucking movies, and that was my theme. So let me see. I have, oh God, there's a couple of them that I haven't seen. Barbarian Sound Studio is one of them. There's the one that I have seen, which I greatly admire, is Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. And because I am a couple of Yinglings deep, I am blanking on the third. Bob, help a man out.
It's Kaidon.
Qui-Gon. That's
Yeah.
right. Which is a movie that I've owned on DVD Criterion for like 7 years and have never watched.
Maybe you'll finally
I
get
know
to it.
Soju, you're familiar with that one.
Yeah, I watched it for the first time maybe last year or something. I was going through a bunch of Japanese movies. And yeah, it's really, really good. Really long as fuck, but really good.
Sweet. Anthology movie, right?
Yeah, it's an anthology. There's like it's like this guy took all these like ancient Japanese horror folk tales and like put them to film like back in the 60s. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, if that wins, I'll be watching it for the first time with you, Randy. Also on Criterion, sitting on my shelf right now. So we'll see.
Unopened.
We'll see what happens. So make
Right. We're a pair.
We're a special group of people.
Bob, can you tell me how those numbers are looking so far though?
Yeah, Firewalk with Me is in first place. After that, we got Barbarian Sound Studio, and last place is Kaidan.
Looks like you boys aren't going to be watching that one.
Yeah, it's still
There's
early.
a lot of time left.
Yeah, it's still early. Make sure you get your votes
You're
in.
going to have to ask Bob for the numbers like 3 more times at least.
It's true. It's a long month, buddy. Make sure you get your votes in before the end of July, and we'll see what we're talking about this August. In other Patreon-related news, we opened and very quickly closed the You Pick the Flick tier this past Sunday.
Hell yeah.
We opened it up for the third quarter of 2021, and like always, they went in just a couple minutes. There's only 5 spots per quarter, so big shouts outs and big thank you to the 5 people that managed to grab a spot.
Someone from Europe got one, right?
No,
Hell yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh, never mind.
I don't think so. Anyway,
I was all excited about that shit.
Bob, you should have lied and said, yeah, it makes us sound cooler.
I know we had some people abroad that were like refreshing our website over and over who had forgotten about the time difference. So they were doing that before any of us were even awake. You know, it was still like Thursday technically in the States, which thanks to you guys for giving a shit. But yeah,
really.
there is a substantial time difference. But big thanks to the 5 winners. We got Luke, Michael, Jackie, Nicole, and Matt. We'll be getting into your picks very, very shortly. I want to do like a blanket slap my ass. Thank you for all 5 of y'all. This one goes out
Sounds fair.
to the winners of the third quarter You Picks. Here we go.
Slap me in the ass.
In the ass.
Yeah. Thanks for the ass
Inside
slaps.
of the ass.
Get in there.
Crawl up in there. Slap around real hard like. That's really all we got going for Patreon. Juice, do you have anything you want to mention?
I do have to do a like negative housekeeping, unfortunately. So
What?
Yeah, I have to like do.
Oh, boy.
I have to retract a bit. So on the last episode, we talked about rubber, and in that housekeeping, I talked about how there was a new reaction video up. Unfortunately, that audio got corrupted, and that video could not actually be posted, and therefore does not actually exist. So sorry for that misleading information. That was a bummer for us as well. But other than that, my house is clean.
Tight.
This house is clean.
Real professional.
Yeah.
You cut out. What can I do?
Okay.
Without further ado, let's get into the main event. We're talking about Jaws, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
All right, we're talking about Jaws from 1975. This movie's rated PG. This is before PG-13 was invented, which is interesting because there's a bit of gore in here. We'll get to all that, though.
And some yabos.
Yeah, well, yeah. So we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Obviously directed by Stephen Spielberg. It was written by Peter Benchley, potentially. Wrote the screenplay. This is based on a novel by the same name.
Novel by Push or Sapphire or something like that. What was that fucking movie? Never mind.
Movie?
I'm drinking.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What?
Anyways.
Based on the novel Push by Sapphire is the joke I was going for.
Oh, I got you. I got you. Joke landed.
The phrasing is deeply important in that joke, so sorry about that, everyone.
The plot synopsis for Jaws is as follows. When the seaside community of Amity finds itself under attack by a dangerous great white shark, The town's chief of police, a young marine biologist, and a grizzled shark hunter embark on a desperate quest to destroy the beast before it strikes again. Featuring an unforgettable score that evokes pure terror, Jaws remains one of the most influential and gripping adventures in motion picture history. Gentle Mangs, silly question. Have you seen Jaws before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randy, kick us off.
Serious answer. Yes and yes. I would say yes to both questions. Pretty much unqualified on both counts. Unqualified, recommend. And I've seen this movie, I don't know, maybe like 7 times in my life. First time very young, too young, maybe. And ever since then, just not semi-annual viewings, I guess you would say.
Sweet deal. Juice, what about you?
I don't remember the first time I saw this. I was probably pretty young too. And over the past, I would say close to maybe 7-ish years, it actually has become an annual watch for me. I think once before even I moved to Korea, we used to go to Sunray and watch it. And I know we've done that a couple times. And then actually last year I got lucky. I used to just kind of watch it on my own once I moved to Korea. But last year I got lucky because COVID hit and there were no new movies coming out at all. And so just around this time, like in the summertime, the theaters there started just showing a bunch of like old horror movies. Like I remember I watched Scream in the theaters and stuff like that. And actually Jaws was one of them. And I got to see it either like July 2nd or July 3rd. And I was like super stoked for that. And so it has become an annual watch for me, specifically for 4th of July is great summer horror. And if you've never seen Jaws or if you have seen Jaws, watch it again for 4th of July because after that it's spooky season. And we're moving on.
Hell yeah.
We don't mix in this house.
Yep. So
we do one drink at a time.
So go ahead, get it out of your system, watch Jaws, specifically 4th of July, and then we can all move on to spooky season. But yes, absolutely recommend
Revenge of the Living Dead while you're at it.
A Return of the Living Dead.
Return of the Living Dead. Did I say Revenge?
You said
Jesus
Revenge,
fucking Christ.
That's today. Today's Return of the Living Dead Day. Randy is
July 3rd.
Return of the Living Dead. I am very off my game.
chugging them brewskis. Yeah, I'd seen this movie several times, obviously.
Sorry, Bob, let's be polite here.
I've already started answering. It's
Let's
fine.
try.
Yeah, this has become an annual watch as well. I'd say the first time I sat down and like really paid attention to the movie start to finish was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And ever since then, yeah, it's an annual watch for me as well. This movie is amazing. People still talk about it today for a reason. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Yeah, no qualifiers, like Randy said. You got to watch it. It's mandatory viewing. Slam your eyeballs into Jaws. And without further ado, we're dropping that spoiler warning, and we're getting into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
Brandy, you gonna do some karaoke for us today?
You know, we might get there.
I hope so. We gotta add it to your collection.
I gotta get my confidence back up. I just kind of fucked everything for like 10 minutes.
You can us with a farewell and adieu, etc., whenever the mood strikes.
Bob, did you type up this plot synopsis?
I got it.
I got it
right
this
here.
week. Okay.
Black and white. Like a professional. Here we go. All right, the movie opens up with a girl skinny dipping late at night in the ocean and being eaten by a shark. Martin Brody, the newly hired police chief of Amity Island, responds to the shark attack. When he sees the bloody scene, he tells his deputy to put up signs saying the beach is closed. The mayor gets wind of the beach closure and convinces Chief Brody that he's being rash and that it was likely just a boating accident that killed the girl. The mayor is also concerned about the revenue the town would lose if they were to close for the 4th of July. Amity is a summer town, and they rely on the summer tourism they get every year. Soon after, a local boy named Alex Kittner gets eaten by the shark in broad daylight. Everyone on the beach witnesses this. Miss Kittner, the boy's mother, then offers a $3,000 bounty for the shark. A local fisherman named Quint tells the mayor he'll find and kill the shark for $10,000, but the mayor doesn't agree. Several fishermen then travel in from out of town to hunt the shark, and a tiger shark is actually killed. Then a marine biologist from a fancy institution named Hooper is sent to Amity to help them with their situation. He convinces Chief Brody to cut open the tiger shark and see what's in its stomach. Due to the slow nature of their digestive system, there would still be evidence of the boy's body in the shark's stomach. They cut it open and find no body parts. Brody and Hooper then go looking for the shark. They come across a local fisherman's mangled boat and a rotting corpse. The mayor still insists they stay open for the 4th of July. A little boy ends up staging a hoax on the 4th with a cardboard fin, causing a panic. The shark then really does attack over in the bay, killing another local right next to Chief Brody's son, sending him into shock. The mayor then agrees to sign a voucher allowing Brody to hire Quint to kill the shark. Brody, Hooper, and Quint set out on a boat. On Quint's boat, rather. The three chase down the shark, shooting spears connected to barrels to his fin, trying to keep him from being able to go deep underwater. The shark rams the boat, causing the boat to take on water. Brody tries to call for help, but Quint smashes the radio. Quint tries drawing the shark into shallow waters, but he ends up running the motor too hard, and it catches fire. The shark then jumps onto the back of the boat, eating Quint alive. Brody lodges a can of compressed air into the shark's mouth and shoots it, causing the shark to blow up. The film ends with Brody and Hooper holding on to the barrels and swimming back to shore.
Arrivederci, baby.
Arrivederci, baby. That's exactly right. All right, let's get in to this thing.
Man, this movie's like absolutely brilliant. And one thing that I like about it as an adult is this is something you get kind of with the sequels, but it's not a movie about a shark. It's a movie about people responding to a shark.
Responding to an emergency.
Yeah, responding to an emergency that affects like their town and affects their revenue and affects their lives. And it's something that I am kind of still amazed by today, especially I remember watching this last summer and being blown away by how relevant almost every, not just reaction is to today, but even just the characters themselves and how they all interact. This movie feels so grounded in a real life kind of response that it feels so timeless and still 45 years later so relevant today. Like it's like completely believable. Everything that happens, like I don't know, it's pretty fascinating, honestly. Like scene to scene, especially this time I was just like microscopically like analyzing almost every single scene. I'm so familiar with it now. I'm just like, man, this holds up so unbelievably incredibly well from a like social standpoint.
I think that's what they call a timeless classic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that why they call it that?
Wow.
You're welcome.
Bob. Yes, Bob.
So yeah, I want to just for example, the terms mayor from Jaws were trending on Twitter around this time last year, weirdly enough, maybe a little earlier. I can't imagine why, but maybe I guess some real life events that occurred bore some resemblance to things that we witnessed in this movie Jaws.
Yeah,
I remember that vividly.
Maybe we had good reason to close beaches, and maybe people didn't want to close them. I don't know.
Well, and there's
I don't know.
Other things outside of like, okay, there was COVID and people worry about money versus safety. And so that's a thing. But even apart from that, which was like mind blowing, that I was like, yeah, this is still like very much relevant to the situation that's happening now. But I find it so interesting. This is such a great little snapshot of almost kind of like Americana in a way, because even the way that Hooper, once he comes in and how people from this community interact with him and like how he's perceived, always kind of like gets a bit of a chuckle out of me, because he's this guy that comes in, he's technically like younger, but he's got this like big beard, so like from my eyes he doesn't like look particularly young. He's the scientist, the know-it-all, and the whole situation with them catching a shark and him saying like this is not the shark, and then be like, you've got the fishermen who don't want to like listen to him because they want the money.
Oh, yeah.
You got the mayor
Or anyone,
who doesn't
really.
want to listen to him because he wants the situation
money.
to all be okay, the money. But even like him telling people like, hey, you're gonna capsize your boat, and then like not wanting to listen to him, and then again Quint like not really respecting him. And yet I love the scene where he's swapping stories with Quint, and actually compared to all of these people, he's actually probably the most like adventurous and seen the most like danger and stuff. But because he's perceived as maybe he's shorter and he's a scientist, that he's just not respected at all. He's not a common man, and so he's
that's
just
what's great, man.
Yeah.
This movie, like, it pivots at one point. So, like, there's two distinctive movies almost in this movie. There's the response of the city and
The
Roy
land.
Scheider reacting to things, and then the upstart young oceanographer institute kid coming into town who nobody wants to listen to because they think they know better. He's a young guy or whatever, and then Quint, the grizzled old dude that everybody thinks is a quack and all this stuff. All this stuff is happening, and just really just a municipal problem, a municipal emergency, and how the city and town is reacting to this. And then it distinctly changes once it's the three men on the boat in basically a bottle episode with the fourth character of Jaws the shark. And then in that situation, you have Hooper and Quint, who start out, very much at odds, but this is like they gain mutual respect because what it is essentially like the oldest story of all time, which is old man, young man, comparing battle scars and gaining respect for each other through mutual emergency situations. That whole scene with the fucking the scar exchange and all that stuff, that's been parodied a million times for good reason, because that is a better like wartime camaraderie story than you'll see in most war movies. There's very few scenes that I can think of in the history of cinema that I've seen that really like make that so clear that these are people that while being sort of like taking different approaches have a respectable amount of knowledge and a respectable amount of skill for what they need to do. And more than that, because they're in this situation, the only reason that they adhere to each other so well at this point is because of the shared goal and the shared mission. So like that scene might as well have been in a fucking World War I trench. It could be in any war movie you've ever seen, and it would have made just as much sense, because it's about camaraderie. It's about like two walks of life coming together for a common enemy. I think that's fucking great. And like, it obviously is one of the most impactful scenes in the movie because people still fucking sing those songs, make those jokes, and parody it in movies to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking Kevin Smith named like 3 characters after those 3 characters at some point or another throughout his career. And that's just him. Like, that's just Kevin Smith on his own.
Yeah.
So, it's clearly has an impact. It's clearly, I don't know. It's just fucking amazing. And it's so, you feel like, I don't know. You feel really ingratiated to these characters, and then of course Roy Scheider on the side. Roy Scheider is like your everyman. He's your point of view character. So you see this young man, old man dynamic, and then this camaraderie form. But your point of view character eventually steps up and becomes the hero. Like this is good shit. This is like storytelling 101. These are the kind of stories that human beings have been drawn to for fucking centuries, and they're just nailing it in this movie. And that's just movie 2 after movie 1, which is about municipal failures and greed over safety and all this other stuff. It's fucking amazing that they managed to so well coalesce those two things.
Yeah, this movie is extremely influential, obviously, in like cultural touchstones and like how it's continued to be referenced in cinema and television. It was also like it sort of changed cinema, the way people like go to the movies and the way movies are made. Like this was sort of the birth of the summer blockbuster. It started here at Jaws, so it sort of I don't know, I guess took Hollywood and turned it on its head and said like, okay, yeah, this was a super low budget movie, not a particularly well-seasoned director here. And what he did Duel and then Jaws, right? And maybe some like TV stuff. So, I mean, he wasn't like a super well-known director, Spielberg, at the time, but then, he created this cash cow and then continued to do so and just further staked his claim in film history. But
now he's like basically synonymous with fucking movies.
True.
Like, even now.
Yeah. But just this being the birth of like the blockbuster is super incredible. And I also like feel like we have to talk about the first thing that happens in this movie is like credits roll, of course, but you hear that score. That theme, that John Williams theme. That's just 2 notes. It's a minor second that slowly speeds up. It's like so incredibly simple. It was like one of those things that I guess John Williams like started playing on the piano for Spielberg, and he's like, "This is what I'm thinking for the theme." And Spielberg thought he was making a joke because it's 2 notes, you know. So he started laughing. He's like, "Okay, what do you really got for him?" He's like, "No, this is it. I'm serious. This is the theme. This is what I want to do." Luckily, he stuck with it because it's probably the most iconic theme in music history, and not in music history, in movie history, because it is so simple. It's impossible to forget.
You, Bach.
Yeah, right. You got nothing on this 2-note shit, but it's impossible to forget it. Anybody, no matter how old, how young, you can always remember the theme for Jaws.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
And it adds
it's so
real
replicable,
tension
and it's
throughout the movie. Because I also too, I think this is lightning in a bottle. It is amazing film work, but also, even as you stated, even Spielberg later said this movie wouldn't have been half as successful had they not stuck with that theme. And but also too, the shark itself didn't work. And so because of it, they had to almost change how they shot some things. And because of that, so even talking about this movie, it's amazing from a cinematography standpoint and the score. But even a horror podcast, from a horror standpoint, the tension is real because of those things. There's some amazing horror scenes in this one. And our opening shot is this girl being pulled under the water. And I had the subtitles on this time. And it's actually pretty brutal. She's screaming like, "Oh God, like I don't want to die. Please God, someone help me." This teenage girl. And then also a kid gets eaten. So before we even really see the shark, these 2 innocents essentially like get torn apart, and the one with the kid is in like broad daylight. So we talk about movies like, The Wicker Man and Midsummer. This is a completely bright movie, and yet the opening scenes that we get has some like real brutality to it. That mom calling for her kid, and you see the blood like pull up around his yellow raft, and it really stands out. It's like so distinct even with those colors. And those are the first 2 people who die in this movie, and that's brutal.
The kid and her mom is one of the most heartbreaking fucking performances, certainly in this movie, certainly the most heartbreaking moment in this movie. But then, like, even beyond that, this is a fucking great performance, and it's so slight. There's not a whole lot to it. There's a mom and her son who, like, they intentionally sort of like they don't call that much attention to it. They are just they point them out just as much as they show any of the other beachgoers.
Yeah,
at that
and we see a few
showing people. Yeah, and we see quite a few. So to have that be so as impactful as it is, and then later on, like when she comes back and gives fucking Roy Scheider what for, it's still like to me, it's like extremely emotional scene.
Yeah,
it is,
and it's just built on nothing more than an unfortunate series of accidents that Roy Scheider actually fought in order to prevent, and actually was trying to be the good guy on. And like, he has no choice. Like, what is he going to tell this mom? No, it wasn't my fault. Of course it was. You're chief of police,
and that's
like you don't get to pass the buck.
Well, and that's why we respect him so much too. I mean, he's like a great upstanding guy. And another thing that makes this movie so enjoyable, like I even love the little moments between Brody and his wife. It feels so authentically grounded. Just them saying like, "Hey, you want to get drunk and fool around?" Or even like when Hooper comes over and it's like eating, their conversation just feels so warm and welcoming. I don't know, it's magnetic. And even like the mayor himself, like, yeah, he's a piece of shit, but you even see these little nuances in what he does. Like when he's talking to the news crew on 4th of July, he's like, "Well, we did catch a big man-eater shark, and so, but we've taken these
He's
extra
very careful with his words.
Yeah, he's very careful. But then even in the end, he's facing the shock of his own. He's not this mustache twirling villain, he is a piece of shit. But even in the end, he's like, my kids were out there, and so everything just has this authentic groundedness to it that just lives on even till today, and it's not affected by things like, oh, look at the crazy technology they didn't have or how they got around stuff like that. It still feels so relevant to me. Almost every line and the way everybody acts, even the panic with the media, like when the mom puts out the thing and Brody's like, I'm just trying to keep the peace, and then all these people are here, well there's money on the line, well we can get it, and it's like, well, who's in charge, and then how does the media respond to this, and how are they responsible for kind of fueling this? It's very interesting.
I want to,
and like, sorry, go ahead, Bob.
I wanted to mention one thing. This go around, I never really paid much attention to this before, but the one scene on the 4th of July where it turns out, the beaches are open, they got tourists coming in like by the shipload, everybody's on the beach having a good time, but they've heard about the shark attack, so nobody's getting in the water. So like, for all intents and purposes, like the mayor has won. The tourists are there. They're spending their dollars in his city, but that's not enough for him. He goes around and convinces people to go get into the water. Like, why even do that at that point?
It's a pride thing at that point.
So directly culpable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's like a longevity thing.
Well,
you
I
could
think
say it's pride, but
maybe so. Yeah.
He wants the full summer.
I think he carries it well though, because you see in those scenes, he of course is in his full suit. He's talking to the media. He's putting on the show. Yeah,
I love that jacket.
And
that suit is so great.
And yet, when he's looking around, you can see the uncertainty in his face. And even on top of that, though, he gets a lot of shit, and he should. But also, I think the great juxtaposition is when we see Brody take the brunt, from the mother's reaction, and we all kind of feel that, and yet we all get to go into kind of this meeting of the town, which is really the town business owners, and they have all the same information. Like, okay, there's a shark out there, it's deadly, it's eating people, it's killed this kid, it killed this girl. And they're still pushing for the same thing, like, hey, I can't survive without this business. And so really the mayor, who's an elected official, and you get to see like those behind the scenes type of situations, which like the moms and dads wouldn't be privy to, this like the business people, then it's like, well, I mean, he is looking out for these elected people who also don't give a shit about safety. They want their businesses to run.
Right. And that's I noticed that as well, and like that's again sort of something that parallels some of the shit that's gone on over and over in history, really, but certainly recently. And that whole scene, like, it puts Brody in this impossible position. Like, it puts the mayor in a bad position, sure, but the mayor still knows, like, he has all of the information. Everybody else is being fed information from him. He is the talking head at the front of the table, so he gets to conform reality to what his agenda is. He gets to tell the people that it's a 24-hour ban instead of a beach ban for an extended period of time. He gets to do like whatever the fuck he wants, and it puts Brody in this position where he's catching every kind of shit from both those people who want their businesses open and feel like their livelihood's at stake, and a mother whose son was actively fucking eaten by a goddamn shark in front of crowds of fucking people. He gets to take the brunt of both. Like, this is it's such a great character thing for him, because not only like everything is stacked against this man. He is culpable for everything, despite the mayor truly being the one, pulling the strings and making these bad things happen by the end of the day, or like allowing them to happen, I should say, and actively asking those things to happen by asking people to swim. But Brody is the one that gets to be the face of all that. He gets to be the one that tries to put out fires that they could have like prevented in the first place. You know what I mean? So it ingratiates you to him so much. And then on top of all that, he's got a family who has a very realistic dynamic with that fucking scene where he's like clearly like upset and his son is mimicking him, and he just like has this that's like one of the greatest, most real down home moments you can imagine. Like it's a heartwarming scene in a movie that's really kind of fraught with like bullshit. Like, for this man, that is the only bright spot in his life is his family, and he can't even really protect them very much, because all he can do is try and get his kids not to swim in the water, and they do it anyway. And like all this, like, there's nothing he can do except try. All he can do is try. And his whole thing, the whole reason he moved there is under the illusion that, in his words, one man can make a difference in Amity. And that's his whole purpose there. Like, that's why he doesn't want to be in New York, because at the time New York was in such bad shape that nothing really mattered. It was all, for whatever reason, it was not working for him. What he wanted to do was make a difference. And he gets to do that in this movie, but it comes at great personal cost for some time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a compelling fucking story.
Well, and even from his point of view, I love this. Again, it's almost paced perfectly, because in those moments you see the frustration in you starts to build, because you are easily able to relate with Brody. As you said, you respect him early on. You see he's a family man and stuff like that. He's just taking the information that he's given, even from the coroner. I love that scene where he's like, well, I just am responding. This is what the coroner said. The coroner said, sure,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to play any political game. It literally is the information I'm given. And then he starts researching sharks on his own. And that's why I love when Hooper comes in, because already as a viewer, your frustration is starting to build, because you easily relate with, the police officer. And so you're like, well, yeah, it's dangerous, obviously, and you feel bad for him because he's just trying to respond to the actual information he's given. So then they even say in that meeting, they say, well, don't you worry, because we're going to hire this guy from this institute, the Ocean Institute, and he's going to come and he's going to tell us what's what. And as soon as he does, and he doesn't tell them what they want to hear, then he becomes the one everybody piles on, that nobody respects, when earlier he was supposed to, this is the one who's going to save us. He's going to give us all the information. And as soon as they get the information, they shit all over this guy.
Yeah. If the information isn't what you want, you attack the source of the information. That is something that we have seen time and time again in life, and that is so real.
Yeah, they talk down to him. They undermine everything that he says. Like, hey, I don't think this is a shark that ate the kid. Well, what do you mean? Of course it's a shark that ate the kid. Well, let's open it up. I'm not going to open it up in front of all these people. It's just like...
Look, yeah. See, and that's the thing. It's like, in that moment, like, you almost, to some extent, can understand the mayor's point of view, because seconds later, Alex Kittner's mom walks on. So, yeah, you definitely don't want to be cutting this fucking thing open, having body parts sliding out of her son, or any person really in front of the town. There's fucking photographers from the paper there.
Yeah.
I can understand that, but he does not allow it at all. And that's just like a cover for, it's decorum disguising negligence, essentially, like an appeal to decorum disguising negligence. And that's like, I don't know, but that whole, like, the way this little town works is a microcosm that is very true to life. And we have seen it, as recently as this past year. And even more than that, like you said, it is timeless. It is the struggle between economics and public safety and public health is the story of fucking metropolitan areas, certainly, and the story of modern governments. So, we all have seen these sorts of things in our daily lives, and it really, and in combination, in concert with the way that they film some of these scenes, that scene with the town hall, the town hall meeting or whatever that is, the way that that's filmed is almost mumblecore, where you have like people talking over each other, having separate conversations. I hear a different conversation every time I watch that fucking scene. You know what I mean? Like, you have that one woman and then a couple of people around her that are, you hear the most of, but there are people that, like, harumphing all over the place and saying all kinds of shit. And it's all sort of leading towards, our hero, or the person that we are identifying with, Brody, being forced into the situation where he's got to tell these people something they do not want to hear. And then he's going to be fucking undermined by the very guy who's fucking, like, ignoring everything that he has to say on the subject. So, and ignoring basic reality. I don't know. This is such a relatable plot, and it's portrayed so realistically in such a way that, like, feels like you're at a real fucking town hall meeting. It's just brilliant, man. It's just works so goddamn well.
I love that character introduction, man. You were talking about the town hall meeting where we're introduced to Quint, where he's like sitting down in the back behind everybody, and he scratches his nails on the chalkboard to get him to shut up. And he's like, offers his services, but he's like, I value my neck a lot more than $3,000, chief. And he asks for 10. And he's just like snacking on crackers the whole time. Like he's the saltiest dog you've ever seen in your life. He's just full of character. And the acting is just spot on, man. It's like such a great introduction to that character. All three of these like main characters that we follow for like the second half of the movie, you can identify with all three of them in one way or another. They're all likable in one way or another, but they're all flawed. Like none of them are really perfect. I guess you could argue like Brody is the perfect like heroine, but he's still
inept though in terms of
Right.
like he's afraid of the water. He doesn't know enough to
He's
be
got
helpful.
the internal conflict where he's the new guy. He doesn't really know what's going on. Like he's so new that when we
Can't
first
tie a sheep shank or whatever.
Yeah,
whatever the fuck
he
that is.
doesn't even. He's got 2 phones in his house, and it just starts ringing and answers the wrong one. Like he just fucking moved in. Like that's how new he is to this town. And then of course when we meet Hooper, he gets off the boat and he's telling everybody what they're doing wrong and they're endangering themselves, and nobody listens to him. They tell him to basically walk off the pier. Like all three of these characters are just like, they feel very grounded and like well written, and of course that is also delivered by fantastic performances. This movie is just a little over 2 hours long, and like I wouldn't cut a second out of it. It's like once you're on the roller coaster ride, like you're locked in and you don't get off until the credits roll, and you're like, wow, that was 2 hours. 2 hours just flew by. That's incredible. The pacing is fantastic. I know I haven't read the book, but I assume they had to cut a lot of information out of the book to compress it into a 2-hour movie. But man, it feels like the town. Even though you spend half the movie on a boat, like you feel like the dynamics and the inner workings of this small seaside town. And I love that you get like snapshots of these characters, like the Kittner mom and the Kittner kid, and like when the very first thing you see in the movie, all the kids are like sitting around a bonfire on the beach having a good time, and like you see the parade marching through town, and you see like the deputy like frantically trying to get all the materials together to go paint these signs. They take the ferry across the way. Like I don't know, I love like the feeling of the town. It just feels very, very grounded and like well fleshed out. Spielberg, man.
So there's so much in the like I've like there's, because this movie is what it is and everybody's looking for a way to like, to capitalize on its popularity by having a fresh take on it or whatever, which is what we've already decided we can't really do. But there's a lot of like movies or not movies, excuse me, videos and lists and so on that list all the differences between the book and the movie. So despite not reading the book, I know a lot of these things. Soju, were you going to talk about a lot of this during the trivia?
Well, some things in trivia, like we already covered, or Bob like was talking about. So go ahead, because there's 285 pieces of trivia. So like even Bob talking about this being the first blockbuster, like I can maybe talk a little more specifics, but go ahead and drop the trivia. There's plenty
so I mean,
of
this is not really trivia about the movie so much as it is the book, but like one of the main differences between the book and the movie is that Hooper and Mrs. Brody were having an affair in the book.
Oh.
And that is one of the most vital cuts I can imagine from this story.
Yeah.
Like,
Because
could
I
you
love
imagine
the
that adding
family dynamic.
anything?
No, yeah.
Yeah, like that. This is like, I don't know if it like, maybe it makes it a more complex tale, but I don't know if it would make it more complex to a better end. This movie as it is such a strong like survival story, a strong story of a guy coming to grips with his own fears to some extent, but also really it's just a story of dudes really trying to make this shit fucking happen at all costs, really trying to protect the village. This is a tribal story on some level, and in that level it fucking works. They band together. This is like I said, this is a band of brothers situation.
Well,
and if you have this unspoken like their lives had intersected at some point prior, that immediately, even in a lesser situation than an affair, automatically makes it like more complex than it needs to be in order to make the ending, the payoff work.
See, I think that's important though, and it's nice to know that, to be able to further point out that is a like master decision though too. Because one thing, I started watching Jaws 2. I haven't finished it yet. I've never really seen it. But even that, you're not going for the low-hanging fruit drama. So one thing I love about this, we get the teens at the beginning, but the people who carry this are like three crusty old men. I mean, they're not all old, but I mean, you're not.
They are all crusty.
Jaws 2, it's got this more teen focus, and there's no like love interest or artificial drama going on. It's authentic drama. Of course, people have affairs, or teenagers exist and do stupid shit. But I mean, the drama that's behind here is masterly crafted to where these three kind of crusty old men are able to carry you in a very engaging thing through whatever age you are. Like it's very relatable to me, at least. And I think that's a great way to point out, just like, you could have added that artificial drama. It was already in the book from the source that you're pulling from. It would have been so easy to add that in as something that you see in media all the time. Oh, this affair, like, that's so dramatic, but it wasn't. And you're right. It would have made the story like worse, in my opinion.
It would have muddled it. That's not the point. The point's not about like the inner dynamics of the Brody family. Specifically, we do get a taste of that, but it's about the town and saving the town from this shark. That's the story you're trying to tell. And of course, when you're writing a book, you got more room to tell these like B stories or whatever, but that's in a movie, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
For all I know, they found a great way of working it out in the book. But, as far as the movie goes, even in the length of this movie, it could not have supported that. And it would have really would have like dragged our camaraderie scenes into the mud. This is a movie, at least the movie is about reacting to an emergency. We've said that already. That is the case. And you don't, the way things work out in an emergency situation are people whose lives are not necessarily tangled together, but are parallel in some way, then they get tangled together, and then they come at odds. You don't have to have a pre-existing beef in order for this to be dramatic. You can just let people's reactions and their differing way of handling things cause the friction and be the thrust of the story. That can work on its own. It doesn't have to be, and that doesn't really, in my mind, at least from the way I imagine it, add anything beyond, something that a movie executive of, maybe like the 90s would feel like it adds, like, oh, we got to have a love interest because we need to get the female demographic in here. But this fucking movie doesn't have that. And it was the blockbuster. Yeah. So obviously like all the market research in the world isn't going to help your story if all you're doing is adding elements that just confiscate or that obfuscate the main thrust of the story. Just let it be the simple thing that it is, and let those personalities dictate the way the story goes.
Yeah.
I want to mention, discuss very briefly. I know this is a topic that we touch on occasion in the podcast. Whether or not something like is considered a horror movie. Like, I know there's some debate regarding Jaws as well as like Alien and other movies like this where they're sort of slowly building tension. They're very character driven, but there are elements of horror in them. Whether or not you would consider Jaws being a horror movie is something that I think we should touch on.
Sure. And actually, I'll start because this was one of my major talking points when we discussed Jurassic Park. I often compared the idea of could Jurassic Park be considered to Jaws, because in my mind, like, Jaws is a classic horror film, and I'm sure that there are people out there who, I mean, if you question whether Alien is a classic horror film or not, then there are people who are going to question Jaws. But in my mind, it absolutely is. And one of the big things that was brought up at the time, which I thought was a pretty valid point for Jurassic Park and something I didn't necessarily consider before, was the score. So the score for Jaws is certainly much more foreboding. There are times, like, I specifically remember when the three of them are all going out on the boat and leaving the town, like to go out on there. It has this kind of more uplifting, adventurous tone, like here we go, we're going out on the sea. But for the most part, you know, it's based on building this real tension. It's based around the scenes for the shark, and letting you know it's there because they couldn't always show it. And I think that works. And so I think that's something that certainly sets it up as a horror film. Again, a lot of things that horror films, even like slashers, are scared to touch. The killing of the kids and like those brutal first couple kills, I think are like really rooted in some like gruesome horror, because, you know, some slashers won't even touch that. There's a kid 10 years old, 11 years old, like they got to be teenagers and they got to be culpable in some way, like, oh, sexually deviant or something. Man, these other ones, like, they're just innocent and they're taken, and because it's nature, maybe it's a little more acceptable than a guy wielding a machete or something. But I think they're brutal though, and even Quint too. When Quint goes down and he's already told his story, which is such a great scene of building this psychological horror of all these men just helplessly floating in the ocean as sharks come to devour them. And then we see it, and the way he said, like, the high-pitched screams in the morning or whatever. And then as he's dying, this guy who we've seen is very capable and very kind of like to himself, you know, he doesn't ever really raise a big ruckus, and his like high-pitched screams as like the shark bites him in half and the blood pouring out of his mouth, like that's horror to me. That's like that's some brutal horror. I think it's absolutely, you know, a horror classic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I was going to say that scene that you were talking about was referenced in Tusk, in which the character gets saved by a walrus. So Kevin Smith bringing a full circle. Yeah.
Really just wants to make Jaws again.
Yeah.
He wants to do a Gus Van Sant Psycho for Jaws. Anyway, yeah, so I tend to agree with you. I've gone on record as saying that, you know, arguing too hard about the genre is just feels like a waste of time. You know what I mean? Because really, if a movie's successful, you know it in your gut, in some way or another. But, you know, I tend to agree that this, you know, there's enough like gore to justify that, even in a time where gore was not very well established. In this time around, I like something that stuck with me that I always forgot about somehow is when when Brody is looking through his, you know, textbooks and stuff on shark attacks and shows some true life shark attack photos that are way more gruesome and bothersome to me than even the shit that happens later in the movie. Like I'm very weak when it comes to, you know, true life, you know, gore. I can handle any sort of like, you know, splatter effect you can throw at me pretty much. But when you gets to like surgical videos and shit, I'm really squeamish. That shit bothers me. And, you know, this movie shows that, you know, so to me, that automatically puts it into another realm on some level. And, you know, like the score is a good point. You know, I think that, you know, the tension is sustained enough to where, like, you know, just because this movie masterfully sort of like flits between, you know, town drama and direct horror, just because it's good at that doesn't mean that it doesn't have that direct horror. I think that direct horror is pretty obvious in the scenes that Soju just pointed out.
There's also one more I forgot where they discover the girl from the beginning. There's two instances where first they find her and her arms just kind of like in the seaweed and there's crabs kind of all drawing around. A great way to further like show just a little bit, you know, not give you all of it, because then later it comes back a little bit when Hooper is doing his own autopsy and you realize like the arm is severed and and when he's describing it, that's so fucking brilliant to have him describe, because they've already teased us this girl's arm in the seaweed surrounded by crabs, but then they bring it in again and you're like, okay, we'll give you a little bit more because you see the severed arm and stuff, but it's his description. Like you know what he's actually seeing without having to build these props and to give you this fake gore. It's psychological, and that's so fucking brilliant to me.
And watching his reaction too, where he's like trying to not vomit on screen, you just feel what he's feeling. You just identify immediately with him in the room, and he's like asking for water and like turning his head, and it's brilliant. It's incredible. I also like wanted to mention this being sort of like paced similarly to that of a slasher film, like it opening with a kill like right out the gate, then like we see a couple other kills, but they sort of happen kind of intermittently and from something that's like lurking in the shadows that you don't really see, and then of course like
you're not even sure it exists at first because you get conflicting reports from the coroner.
True. And then
at the behest of the mayor,
towards the end of the movie, you're greeted full frontally, and you just see the creature and the gore all right there. And it's very much paced like a slash movie or like a classic horror film would be paced.
Yeah,
it's just done with the more subtle hand of Spielberg, and also I think he was sort of forced to have that subtle hand in the fact that Bruce the shark, Bruce the shark didn't operate the way they designed it to operate.
They call me the Jaw.
I am the Jaw.
In this discussion, I feel like
that
it's
was Rob's
necessary
nickname in high school.
I'm Jaw.
Call me Deep Jaw.
Not what they called me.
No, one thing I want to point out is this is one of the few movies, like I said, I saw this movie probably a little too young. I don't know exactly what age, but I do know that I was afraid to walk into my bedroom and turn on the light because I was afraid that when I did, it would be filled with it would basically be filled with the scene where Hooper finds a dude's head floating in the water. Or floating out of a boat scene, and like my room would just be that scene. It would just be a room filled with water and a crashed boat and a head. Like I had basically waking nightmares from this fucking movie. If that's not an indicator
to
of
live
a
in
horror
Florida,
movie, I don't know.
Well, that's a good point, though. Talking about this movie's relevance to the horror genre. I mean, what is the purpose of horror? It's to instill fear or to capture that, fear. How many people did this film affect as far as affecting their fear of the water? I know we live, the Atlantic here. Any water, even if you go to a river or lake, any water you get into is not clear whatsoever. It's murky. You cannot see your feet in any way. It's not like sometimes we go to the Gulf and it's a little more clear and you can actually see through it.
And stuff, but primarily
springs, yeah. But so, I mean, I know that seeing this as a kid, and your imagination starts to run wild even when you're not completely submerged. I used to go surfing and like, you always just have those thoughts in the back of your mind. You're always, a little bit of paranoia because you're out there, you can't quite touch, and, you're relying on this board for like complete safety, and you always just kind of get, paranoid a little bit, like, oh shit, there's something. So like, I think that like this movie is like instilled so much fear in so many different people. I mean, there are people who are afraid to like go into the ocean even, if you didn't grow up around it and stuff like that. And so I think that's like another
this movie.
What is it?
The marketing pull, like the tagline, is it for this movie? It might have been for Jaws 2 actually, but it was something along the lines of, you'll never want to go back in the water. Yeah. I mean, that's true. Like the people like this movie, I remember, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember there being some sort of trivia to the effect of like, like beach towns experienced a lull after these movies were released because it was such a big cultural phenomenon. So many people were familiar with going to the beach. And here's the thing, is like, as human beings, you think about going to the beach as a good time, but when this movie posits instead, no, the beach is an unknown thing that unless you know what the fuck you're doing, it can kill you, which is true.
Yeah.
Like when you think about those, like you can be ripped out by a riptide. We know, how many stories are there of people being drawn out to sea by a riptide or by whatever, like fucking Steve Irwin, the fucking crocodile hunter, was killed by something in water.
Yeah.
It takes away some of your most basic survival abilities because you don't have like standard gravity at your disposal. You don't have an easy way to get around. Me as a fat guy, I basically am a fucking buoy. If I get attacked by a shark, my ass is going the fuck down. So like, I don't like, this is it's primal is I guess what I'm getting at. These are primal fears that they are really stoking. So like, as much as we say, you know, like, oh, horror movies can be, you know, rooted in the fears of the time, this movie is rooted in the fears of all time and all human existence.
Yeah.
The fears of what you can't see, what you can't control, and what you literally physically cannot usurp and cannot overcome because of the status of your own physical self.
Yeah.
So this is a primal fear that they're dealing with. No wonder it's fucking timeless. And it's timeless, you know, in the sociological effects as well. Like we talked about that as well. So if you hit those 2 marks, you have a timeless film on your hands, period.
Boom. Jaws is a horror movie.
Boom.
Dropping the mic on that one. There was this one time a few years ago, I was walking down the beach and I came across this shark. It was like a baby shark. It was maybe a foot long, something like that. And it was just like stuck on the sand, still squirming. It was alive. And I was like, I felt bad for it. I was like, oh shit, I guess it like got stuck somehow. So like I picked it up and put it back in the water and let it swim out to sea. And like I walked another couple dozen feet or whatever, and then I turned around and I saw there was a fisherman like looking for the shark that he had just caught. I guess he just like threw it on the sand real quick. He was surf fishing. I didn't know. But I like to think that thing grew up.
I think
and
he
ate
went
somebody.
that way.
I just kept walking and I was like, I didn't see shit. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Sorry.
You're a monster.
Yeah.
I think there's one more thing too that makes, well, I mean, there's more than one more, but there's one more thing I want to point out that makes this film kind of special that we've kind of danced around a little bit. It's the setting too. And again, almost like there's 2 different movies in this. There's kind of 2 different settings, but they each have this kind of mystical, magical feel to them. So for us, you know, we find the characters, all 3, like you said, very relatable, and this town understandable and relatable. And yet it's set in a setting, you know, the Northeast coast. They talk about like Cape Cod and stuff like that. That in our minds is like a special kind of place. And it almost has this special kind of feel where a lot of people have boats. They're all very familiar with going out. You have the lighthouses out there, you have the dunes, and even us who grew up like on the coast, you know, with the ocean, it still feels a little particular. It feels, you know, like its own special little place, its own special little culture. And then also too, it takes you even into like further down into that, like zoom even further of the life like on the boat. You know, this isn't a particularly big boat, but it's big enough for someone to like live on in a way and make their living
Well, it's
from
got
it.
a hierarchy.
Yeah, and like the interactions. And so it's this own special little culture even on the boat. You're right, like with the hierarchy, and even Brody, who back home, you know, he's got his job and stuff like that, but here he's completely out of his league. He doesn't know how to tie a knot. He's, you know, he's made to throw the chum over because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. But it's such an interesting little look into 2 special kind of environments that even as Americans who are, you know, familiar with this type of, you know, economics and the mayor and stuff like that, it still even feels kind of special and, you know, magical with some of the settings to us even. And it really shines through like with some of the shots, like when Quint, I love the shot where Quint is on the end of the boat and he's got like the gun and the sun's going down and he's just kind of leaning on the boat, just kind of like tipping back and forth. That's like, just such a magical shot
or whatever you call it.
Yeah. It's such a magical shot that is made by the setting. Nobody's speaking, you know, nothing, no action is going on. It's purely like you're living in this special kind of place. And I think that makes the movie, you know, special as well. It's a great little look at a corner of America that not everyone gets to be familiar with.
Well, yes, and since you brought kind of adjacent to that is the cinematography of this movie is fucking great. Like this, it's nothing that we, you know, hasn't been used and abused by people with lesser, you know, skill in the years past, but like just watching even the first scene, I remember watching as the first things dance on screen are kids at a fucking bonfire on the beach. Great. But the way they show that is there's a lot of play with foreground, background. There's a couple kissing in the foreground they're right in front of the fire, but you're always with the fire in the background. So it's like in silhouette. It's almost like this fucking, it's almost graphical in a way. And I say that as a designer, like it's almost something I feel like I could illustrate. And like that iconography, I'm saying that wrong. Iconography. Thank you. Whew. Not there, not that drunk yet. Oh, the oceanography of the scene is great.
There you go.
No, but yeah, these are just simple but effective is how you can describe just about every shot. And then you'll get a shot like that, or like or really like a shot like what you described, Justin, with Quint on the bow or whatever, just like looking back, and you're like just kind of swaying with the ocean as the sun sets behind him. That's beautiful shit. Then you have shots like the fucking raft of Alex Tittner's raft floating up into the like that's. It's scene, just like the horror of that. Like
the scene you mentioned, Randy, where we're basically just watching Chief Brody read a book. It's boring, right? Nothing much is happening. But the way it's shot is the camera's in front of him, and as he's flipping the pages, you see the reflection in his glasses of the pages flipping around, and then the camera spins around and focuses on a horrific image, and then spins back around, and we see him flipping through pages in his glasses again. And the way, that's like such a beautiful way to show him just reading a book. It's right. Incredible.
And then you've got things like again, like that sort of in the same vein, showing his paranoia when he's on the beach the day that it's open, like the day Alex Kittner dies. He's on the beach. He's watching the fucking ocean like a hawk. He's one of like 3 people that knows to do so. And he is fucking doing this as like this dude's coming over and trying to complain about whatever his shutters being, whatever it is he's complaining about. And they do this fucking De Palma like multi-focus situation where the guy's kind of in focus, like right up here by the camera, but in the background, that's what you're really focused on, which is somebody screaming. And it's a girl who's being lifted by her boyfriend, it turns out. And the guy, like, you're not listening to that guy, and neither is Brody. It is brilliant fucking filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's just great.
And even, like, again, the scenes with the shark, obviously we get the first one that's brilliant with the girl with her legs kicking and the yabos float and stuff like that. One of my favorites, they do it like a couple times, when the shark comes up and gets the guy in the pond. When he just it's like the sideways view and he like grabs him by the legs and then the dude is gone. Like, man, that is a fantastic shot, a tease of the shark. And then again, you know, it's really what's leading into the shit going down on the boat. Of course, when Brody, he's throwing the chum and old Jaws, he just like comes up right behind him.
Dude, that's like, that's a legit jump scare, like when he's chumming the water, just talking shit about Quint, and then the Jaws, the shark pops up. I just keep calling it Jaws. The shark pops up right behind him. Also, there's another jump scare whenever Hooper's scuba diving and they find that ship that's been like half eaten in the middle of the night, and you see the corpse just like pop up through that hole, and that makes him drop the tooth or whatever.
Fucking pissed out of me.
Yeah, it's a legit jump scare in this.
But neither one of those
movie.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. Go, continue.
Both of those scares, like I intend to, now that I've seen the film, listen to the episode about Conjuring 3. But both of those jump scares are far more effective than literally any scare in that movie. It's because, and it's in part due to the fact that they didn't do the thing which Conjuring and so many movies are now guilty of, which is the fucking, and it's really loud all of a sudden. Like that shit does not happen.
It doesn't happen in any of the scenes we just talked about, like where he's coming sideways. Now the music is brilliant.
Even before that was a big thing to do. But I don't know.
And see, here's the thing too. Again, man, goddamn, this movie's just too good. Is okay. Even if Jaws wasn't special, everything that they set up already makes it terrifying, even if he's just a regular old shark. You know, that's okay. He can just be a shark and it's scary. But then they like take it to 11. You know, you're already scared of what's going on here. But then once he shows up, oh, you're going to need a bigger boat, and you realize like just how fucking big he is, then it like, you're like, oh, fuck, you know, it elevates it even
in
more.
Waves, the O and then the fuck.
Yeah, but it could, like, they could have left it fine, like, oh, it's a regular shark, and you would have already been terrified, and everything would have been established like fine, you know. So man, it's just there's just so many good things.
That scene where they finally they shoot 2 barrels into his fin, and then they take the ropes and tie him off to the back of the boat, but the shark is so fucking big and strong, he pulls the entire boat backwards and they're taking on water. That's when you really understand what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's an incredible beast that, I mean, they're
and it's such a gradual understanding. It feels sudden, but like you suddenly realize, oh shit, this is an intimidating thing. But then you realize when it can drag the boat around, it's like, okay, this thing is now dragging the fucking boat around. This thing can tear through anything like goddamn tinfoil. Like they have no hope here.
But see, they teased it so well in the first half, though, because the people who actually know what they're talking about. So our introduction to Quint, he's like, bitch, I'm not doing this for $3,000. I'm going to do it for $10,000. And then, you know, when Hooper finally shows up and he's doing his autopsy and he's like, this shark is huge. Like, you don't understand that this is not the shark. It's impossible or whatever. So they tease it to you a little bit, but then, you get the actual, like, it dragging the bow. I love when...
but it's bigger than either of them thought either.
Yeah, like Hooper's legs get caught, you know? There's just, like, these little moments of extra tension that they add, like, oh shit, my legs are caught. Or even when Hooper is like getting his tracker and Quint's like, Hooper, tie the barrel or whatever, and like, I don't it's just like the shark's already coming, you're already tense, but then you're just like fuck without going like what, like it's real tension of things that are actually happening. It's fucking brilliant. Oh my god, so good.
Quality filmmaking, quality writing, quality acting.
Adieu to you, fair Spanish ladies.
Yeah.
Farewell and adieu to you, ladies of Spain.
Bravo.
Any sly look.
Bravo. Dropping panties.
Do you recall the murder mystery? Justin, you read that murder. Were you there?
Yeah.
I know Rob was.
Yeah.
What are you talking
We
about?
had a murder mystery party at the house a few years ago.
I think you were in Korea.
You might have been in Korea. Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, you weren't there, but I was. I basically played my character that I was given entirely as Quint.
Yeah.
I was extraordinarily drunk, and I sang that song probably 35 times in one night.
It was great. It was a great time.
Woo.
It was a great time. It's a fabulous memory.
Thanks, guys.
Glad you were there for it.
Yeah, glad I can remember it with you guys.
I hope Korea's fucking worth it, dipshit.
All my time wasted.
Wasted that time.
Wasted
overseas
because
in a
I'm
different culture.
Doing culture.
You could have seen my Quint impression.
I was doing
Which is quality, to be fair. Quality Quint. Gentlemen's, I know we could go on and on. Is there anything else we want to touch on before we go ahead and rate Jaws?
Let's drop it.
All right. We're doing it. Out of 5. Juice, why don't you kick us off? How you feel about Jaws?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's going to be any surprises here, but I'm trying to think if there's anything that I missed. But obviously, the writing, the acting, like everyone's casted perfectly in this. All the fluff was cut out, as we kind of mentioned before. Cinematography, the setting is special. The the kind of split into almost 2 movies. It is kind of surprising. There's so much weight to this town and to the culture and to everything you experience within the first hour, and it's only within an hour. Like, so much happens, and like you get this full understanding of everything in just an hour. That in itself is such a credit. I agree there. I can't really knock this movie for really anything. I enjoy watching it so much. Yesterday, I was watching it with my family, and they hadn't seen it in a little while, and I was just so happy that they got to experience it. They were enjoying it so much. I love seeing it every year, and I know, like, last year it really hit me about, like, wow, this is still... I really felt the timelessness of it last year when so many things were hitting home. Like, the money over the safety and the implications of that, and how these people are worried about their business. This woman has just lost her child, and the weight that falls onto everyone. Again, yesterday it was like really kind of shining through to me of just how Hooper was treated, as I pointed out before, and I feel like that's still something that I see and is regular today, where people are just judged by this kind of superficial level, like, oh, he's a smaller, younger guy who's a scientist. Let's just disregard him. He's not the everyman. He's not a common man. And yet...
he's a scientist.
Yeah,
Who
and
cares?
yet he has more skills, on a ship, than maybe Quint. Like, he's completely capable and knows what he's talking about, and is like a true like seaman, and like he really, I don't know,
the truest seaman.
He is a true seaman.
It's true ass seaman right there.
I really love this movie. It's just so well crafted. It's like the perfect summer horror film. Perfect for 4th of July. Everything takes place. There's never even a nighttime scene, except I think that opening scene. Everything takes place like completely during the day. Oh no, and the diving scene.
Yeah, and
there's
then
a
when
couple
they
nighttime
share
scenes.
their stories and get
That's
drunk.
okay. Never mind.
There's
I'm
a
wrong.
few.
I'm wrong. But so it's just it's so well crafted, and because it lives almost in the realm of this drama slash blockbuster, they're able to even take more risks somehow than regular horror films are, like the killing of the kids and stuff like that, and like the Yabos floating around PG-13. I don't know what's talking about there, but this movie, it's of course it's amazing.
PG, by the way.
Oh, PG. So 5 stars plus half star for the Yabos. This is going to take that to 5.5.
We cap it at 5.
We're breaking our system here a little bit for the
Yabos. The
Yabos.
system. No, I mean 5 is as high as I can go, but if I could take it 5.5 for the Yabos, of course I would. But 5-star for me, of course. Bob,
Yo,
out of 5.
Not a man of your word, I see.
You got this 4K Ultra HD, which actually, if anything, this is like a worthy purchase.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm glad you have this.
Wow,
glad
look
you're
at
glad.
that.
I know.
Physical media.
Bob, out of 5, what are you giving Jaws?
Jaws is one of those rarities that I would refer to as being a perfect movie. I really don't have any complaints about the movie at all. Something we didn't really touch on was sort of like, we talked about like the older generation and the younger generation, but there's also sort of like an old school sort of way of working and a new school way of working, where we get Quint on the ship, and he's just like willing. He's like almost too willing to sacrifice himself to get the job done, but he's even willing to sacrifice his entire crew to get the job done.
Yeah.
Even like when Brody picks up the radio and he starts calling for help, which is like a totally rational thing to do, especially given the situation they're in. Quint like won't have it. He grabs a bat, bashes the radio because the captain goes down with the ship, right? He doesn't want to admit defeat. He doesn't want to wave a white flag and call for help. But he's willing to do that, and then also just take down his crew with him. They don't really have the option of being saved here. It's insane. So we get a taste of that, but we also get a taste of Hooper coming in with all of his technology. He's got like the shark cage, and he's got whatever that vial is. I guess that's supposed to, like a vial of poison that's supposed to kill the shark or whatever.
The tracker.
Yeah, he's got his trackers too.
Arsenic, I believe.
Is it arsenic? Yeah, whatever it is, I forget.
Something like that.
His bottles of compressed air that obviously really come in clutch in the end of the movie. That's how they defeat the shark. Otherwise, they all would have just been eaten. And so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I love seeing the contradiction between those two ways of working. I don't know. The acting is incredible. The cinematography, we've already touched on it. The beginning of the blockbuster, one of the most iconic film scores in all of history. I just don't have any complaints. It's one of those movies that I can throw on every 4th of July and watch it and thoroughly enjoy the ride. I mean, hell, it had a ride, a literal ride,
Hell yeah.
at Universal Studios, Florida.
Yeah.
which they
Till
decommissioned
the Potters came through.
it. Yeah, fucking Potters came through and decommissioned it. Salty some bitches.
Goddamn
They
shame.
cut King Kong down way before that. Jaws was one of I think E.T. I guess is one of the last OG rides, but Jaws was up there.
That is the last OG
last.
ride.
Yeah, I think Jaws was the one to go before. So I think E.T. is
It hung around for a
holding down the
while.
line, but yeah, Jaws was there too for a hot minute.
Yeah. I don't know. This movie is incredible. It's a 5-star movie from your boy Bob. Randy, how you feel?
Feel great. I want to open because Justin pointed out just how much of a seaman Quint is, and I want to point out the mark of a true seaman in the words of Community's Dan Harmon in the show Community. This is a quote. "When I look at you, I no longer see students. I see seamen. From the moment you came on board, I saw seamen inside of you. More importantly, you've stopped laughing at the word seaman, which is the mark of a true seaman." Yes, indeed. Very good. And this is
Bravo.
a great fucking movie. This is a perfect fucking movie in so many ways. I don't have the gumption or the fortitude to hot take this out of its rightful 5-star position. I don't have a strong enough opinion contrary to anybody else's to justify that, and I certainly don't have the willingness to argue about it to that end. So this is a 5-star movie. I mean, I think the characters are strong enough. Like there are very few characters in cinema history that I think are more embodied by their actor than fucking Quint. Goddamn, Robert Shaw just fucking nails this goddamn part, and everybody's great, but like there's nobody else that I would ever even want to see play this part. I remember in Sunny in Philadelphia, at one point Charlie Kelly does the doll's eyes. You know the scene. This scene.
Yeah, it's like, you know that scene from Jaws?
Roll over wide and then
A doll's
I hear that terrible high-pitched screaming.
He did all of that shit, and it was like, are you doing Jaws right now? And they had to call it out, not only because it was a hilarious thing to do so, and it was kind of a meta thing, but it's like, nobody's going to do that better than Robert Shaw. When you're doing fucking Quint, you are doing Robert Shaw doing Quint, period. Nothing else compares. This movie is such a fucking like insurmountable cultural icon and cultural touchstone. You really can't supersede it. Ooh, that was awesome. But
Can't stop.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to add to this discussion. I love this movie. I won't say it's like my favorite movie of all time necessarily or anything like that, because that's a personal thing. But like on the level of craft, on the level of good storytelling, good cinematography, good music, good acting, all of that shit, it comes together, and it comes together fucking perfectly. And they, through some like choice and some accidental, like happy accidents, things like the shark not working properly, so showing less of the shark, some of those things, all that shit worked and created lightning in a bottle. And there's very few movies that will ever touch the level of notoriety of this one, and it's with very, very good reason. It's a 5-star movie.
Simple math. That's going to put our aggregate at a 5-star. It's rare. It's a rare moment in straight chilling history that we hit a
Quite.
perfect 5-star film.
The
but
Shining, maybe?
Here we are.
Jurassic Park? I don't know. There's been a handful.
I think
Sleepaway
Stranger Things
Camp.
season 1 got it, which
Yeah.
I have some regrets about.
Bite your tongue.
Yeah.
Okay. Bitten.
Let's go ahead and jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment, see what the critics and users think about Yaws.
Certified.
All right, folks, this is our Rotten Tomatoes segment. For those new to the cast, welcome. And this, the way this works is I'm going to give Rob and Justin the opportunity to guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate scores are for Jaws, both the critic score and user score. And we're going to start with the critics as we usually do. I'll start with Bob today. Critic score. This is, I feel like this is going to be a game of inches in so many ways. There are only 92 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes qualified for this, so keep that in mind. What between 0 and 100% is the aggregate score in your mind for this film?
It's got to be crazy high. I'm going to go with a 98.
1998, Godzilla with Matthew Broderick. It's a
Accurate.
perfect choice for you.
Perfect film.
And no one
again.
else. Oh God. There's the hot take we've been asking for all episode.
Yeah.
All right, Soju, what are you going to come back with here?
This potentially could be 100 film, but since Rob went so high, I'll just take an under, and I'll go with the reverse comedy number of 96, please. 96 dudes.
Oh yeah,
96.
the Mars
dudes.
Attacks years. Okay, 96 dudes. All right. Well, I mean, he didn't really stand much of a chance. Bob getting the first bite of the apple really worked out for him because it is a ring-a-ding, and it's a 98%.
Nice.
Ring-a-ding-ding, Bob.
Let me get that hell skeet.
Hell skeet.
Thank you.
Bob, you've really come a long way in accepting the yeet skeet dichotomy.
Yeah.
I got to give you credit. You really adopted it.
You got to lean into it.
All right, Soju, now's your chance for rebuttal here. We got the audience score. You're going to open us up here. There are 250,000 plus ratings.
Ooh, it's
of
still got to
user
be
ratings.
so high.
what are
Maybe,
you
if
thinking?
anything, it's probably a scotch lower. It's still got to be in the 90s. So I'll take 95.
95. All right. The year of reality bites, I think. Anyway, I don't know why I'm just relating these to fucking movie dates. Anyway,
Sweet.
Bob, what's your rebuttal?
I'm going to go with my 98 degrees again, please.
98 degrees. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, you're not going to work out this time.
Damn it.
Soju's going to take it.
Oh!
This is a 90%.
Oh, can I get a
90%.
hell yeah?
Hell yeet.
All right, fully adopted. There we go. The critics' consensus is as follows: compelling, well-crafted storytelling, and judicious sense of terror ensure Steven Spielberg's Jaws has remained a benchmark in the art of delivering modern blockbuster thrills. Don't think anybody's going to disagree with that, and if they are, fuck them. Fuck
Yeah,
them.
90. Wow, that's surprisingly low.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of naysayers in the world that just really gotta make sure and stick it to the popular movies. And this movie is so good
Yeah.
that it's bound to inspire its fair share of hot takers.
Oh, my lord.
We're not among them. I don't have the fortitude for such a thing. Here's one negative review because we always read a negative review.
Oh,
Nice.
I haven't read it yet, so let's see if it's funny or enraging or what. It's a coarse-grained and exploitative work which depends on excess for its impact. Ashore, it is a bore, awkwardly staged and lumpily written. Lumpily written is the most lumpily written thing I have ever heard.
Awkwardly staged? Like, what movie do you like that is crafted better than this film in your opinion?
I
Excessive?
don't know.
Like,
It's not excessive.
Dude, like lumpily written, like that. Just those two words together sound like what you're trying to describe. It's an onomatopoeia for what you're describing, and you wrote it, bitch.
awkwardly staged.
You
Damn.
bitch.
Ashore, it is a bore. Oh man, somebody really touched themselves to the rhyming in ashore. It's a bore,
You lumpy bitch.
guaranteed.
You fucking lumpy piece of shit bitch.
Lumpy bitch. That's how we respond to this shit.
Ashore, it's a bore. Well done.
God damn, man.
Okay,
that was
well.
funny, but not in the way, not because it was intentionally so.
Oh,
All right, there
boy.
you go. Your Rotten Tomatoes in short.
Thank you, Randy. Without further ado, it's totally time for trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
All All right, so there are 285 pieces of Jaws trivia on IMDb. We've already covered some things, so I'll just start at the top. I've read a couple of these. They're pretty interesting. Several decades after the film's release, Lee Fierro, who played Miss Kittner, walked into a seafood restaurant and noticed that the menu had an Alex Kittner sandwich.
I know this.
Yeah. She commented that she had played his mother so many years ago. The owner of the restaurant ran out to meet her, and he was none other than Jeffrey Voorhees, who had played her son in the movie. They had not seen each other since the original movie shoot. Wow, what do you know?
God damn, I fucking love that.
That's
just
wild.
Like that's like just some fucking beautiful serendipity.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. According to the director, Stephen Spielberg, the prop arm looked too fake. Yeah. Stephen Spielberg looked too fake in the scene where Chrissy's arm where Chrissy's remains are discovered. So instead, they buried a female crew member in the sand with only her arm exposed. Damn.
Somebody's like, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay.
I'm breathing through a straw.
Fucking those crabs. I couldn't have done that shit because
those crabs look gnarly. Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss could not stand each other, and the two argued all the time, which resulted in some good tension between Hooper and Quint. Yeah, that shit felt authentic. Just real quick touching on what Bob mentioned before, over 67 million people in the U.S. went to see this film when it initially released in 1975, making it the first summer blockbuster. Wow. That's wild. Wow. According to Carl Gottlieb, the line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," was not scripted, but was ad-libbed by Brody. Rob talked about John Williams. It does say that Steven Spielberg laughed at him.
You damn fool!
He said, that's funny, John, really, but what do you really have in mind for the theme for Jaws?
And that was at a time. I mean, honestly, this is at a time like this was before Spielberg was Spielberg.
Yeah,
so
sure, yeah.
You could actually, like, if Spielberg laughs at your contribution to his film now, you better shrivel up your ass and crawl into a grave.
Shrivel up your ass.
Shrivel up your ass. According to the Making of Jaws 1995 documentary, the shooting star that appears during the night scene where Brody loads his revolver was real and not an optical effect.
So
there's two.
Yeah, there's two. I wanted to give shout outs to my sister. I was watching it with my family this past week, and she hadn't read the trivia and was just like, there's shooting stars in this movie. And I was like, you got to point them out to me. And she did. Like, right after they all share their horror stories and they walk upstairs, just behind Chief Brody's head, there's a shooting star. And then the camera shifts from that view to like a wide shot of the boat, and there's another shooting star across the whole boat. It's pretty awesome.
That's dope. Who is this?
It happens in the movie, but my sister pointed it out to me when we were watching it.
Okay, I was asking which sister, but I guess you don't want to reveal that. That's fine.
Oh, yeah, that's weird. I'll tell you later.
Okay, cool. I was just curious. I forget that we're recording sometimes. You know how it is.
I was not paying attention, so I actually don't know what y'all are talking about. According to
cool. This is just like we all forget we're recording all the time. Really.
I was trying to read ahead to Troy and make sure it was interesting.
Sure.
According to director Steven Spielberg, in the DVD Making of documentary, his original idea for introducing Quint was to have him in a local movie theater watching Moby Dick from 1956. Quint was to be sitting at the back of the theater laughing so loudly at the absurd special effects of the whale that he drove the other viewers to exit the theater. That's pretty funny.
Well, did he that's a Cape Fear moment, I guess.
I mean, this goes on and on and on. The shark's name was Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
So it says director Steven Spielberg named the shark Bruce after his lawyer. Yeah. So, it just goes on and on and on, but we got other stuff to do. So if you just love Jaws, I encourage you to just go read some IMDb trivia after you listen.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Like, just I in order to just like I went through and found one of these listicles, which is the Screen Rant listicle, Jaws, biggest differences between the book and Steven Spielberg's movie. And one other one of direct interest, I would say, is the mayor had mob ties, which directly correlated to him keeping the beach open, which again is one of those things that, that makes a kind of like that could be a motivating factor or whatever, but God, that would have just fluffed this movie beyond its breaking point for sure. And honestly, the exclusion of that makes it timeless, like we were talking about. Like instead of that, it is pure self-interest of a public official to keep his constituents happy that leads him to make this disastrous fucking decision. Like that in and of itself is more than enough, and it took excising the fluff in order for that to take hold. So good, these guys, they chose all the right fucking things to take out of this story. It's pretty clear to me. I just want to add that.
There's a scene in this movie I was watching this time around. I was like, it feels like the mayor's all mobbed up. It's the scene where they're taking the ferry across the river and the mayor drives his boat up onto it. And it's the mayor and like two of his cronies, and they're sort of like surrounding Brody, and Brody's got his back against the water, and they're convincing him that it was just a boating accident and there's no reason to close the beaches. And I was like, this whole vibe is like, it feels like mobsters leaning on a guy to do their bidding for him. It just had that feel to it.
Which is not that far off from a politician, which is why it's so fucking effective either way.
Yeah.
I love that scene so much though. Somebody pointed out in a YouTube video I watched some time ago that scene works really well. That is just like a really brilliant directorial decision, because instead of having they could have had that scene in Brody's office. They could have had that in a still shot somewhere and had it be reverse shot. But instead they have it on this fucking ferry for no reason other than to give a dynamic background and give this foreground background of the conversation, have it count for a little more. I love that. And somebody explaining that to me really highlighted why that scene works so well. Not just on a character level, but on a blocking level.
It's also, dare I say, the implication.
Oh my. Well, you're fishing, but I'll give it to you.
Because of the implication.
Thank you. And thanks for the pun too. Speaking of fishing, it's time to go fishing for our Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the Week.
Juice, what's a cooter and why are we hunting them?
Cooter is a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, and we want a cooter with the most points. The 5 points are manipulation, smug arrogance, sexual deviancy, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, who is going to be our Cooter of the Week?
The mayor.
Let's go with the mayor.
Let's look at the mayor.
He's been nominated. So let's go. What do you want to nominate him for first, Bob?
I would say manipulation.
Okay.
He's definitely manipulating Brody.
Yeah.
To do what he wants him to do. And he's definitely influenced by the town folks. He's kind of got the town folks' interest at heart, but also he's putting them in physical danger.
Yeah. I would say the one scene that really starts to give away, there's several, but like you said before, everyone's at the beach, they're spending their money. Okay.
Yeah.
But then when he goes up and he's like, Bob, no one's swimming in the ocean. He's like, get in the ocean. Pretty much making people get in the water to risk their safety, their family safety. Take your fucking kids into the ocean. It's that's some high manipulation. The scene you mentioned where they're kind of leaning on Brody to change his stance. Even when he's talking to the media, again, he's very slick about the words he chooses and stuff like that. It's got a very manipulative vibe to it going on.
It's almost in the job description to some extent too. This is the American politician and beyond.
Can we go for a look at attire?
Yeah, that's pretty obvious.
I don't know, man. I love this suit.
Dude, that suit he's wearing on 4th of July.
It's only cootery because his manipulation is so strong.
Dude, that dude's wearing a suit on the 4th of July on the beach.
Roasting those nuts.
I don't know. It's like
Dude,
like a clown isn't inherently a looking attire cooter, but John
Yes,
Wayne
yes,
Gacy
it
in a
is.
clown costume is a very much a fucking cooter. That's how I feel
I
about
mean, it
this.
was no
this
blue
suit.
business suit. I mean, there was choices made.
Your choices, anchory choices. Yeah, I guess you could give it to him, but I think it goes in tandem with manipulation. Smug arrogance. I feel like there's a touch of that, but it falls apart. Like he very much eats crow at a certain point in this movie. So I kind of want to give him a little bit of a pass.
I don't want to
know if you
give
guys
him
feel
a
the same way.
pass because there's one kind of key moment.
Okay.
And we touched on it before, but I want to like harp on it for the Cooter segment where he's really being a dick about it. So he brags to all the town people, we're hiring an expert. The expert comes in and Hooper gives him the spiel and everything. And even they cut up the shark, something that he steered against. But then they go and they find the boat and they find the shark's tooth. And like him being like, where's this tooth at? Oh, you don't have the tooth. Oh, so convenient. Brody, did you see the tooth? I mean, it's just very fucking like he goes overboard with the arrogance. He's not really like, whether they had the tooth or not, he wouldn't give a shit. He's just like really trying to discredit them and being a huge prick about it. So I would give the smug arrogance for that scene.
I don't know if I qualify that. I mean, I see what you're saying, and that's certainly skeevy as fuck. But arrogance, I mean, maybe to an extent, but that almost seems more like, I don't know. It just seems more like manipulation to me. That seems more like he's manipulating the events to what he wants it to be. And I guess that takes a kind of arrogance to do that, which we come up against that quite a bit, where those two things are tied together. So I guess you could claim him as both. The thing is, like, I don't see another candidate that's as strong as him in this movie. Do you guys?
No, there's not a lot of characters. Does he hit
It's
any
not
more
fucking
smug arrogance?
Yeah, I would say he hits patheticness for me because this man, he's an adult person who is the mayor of a town. He is responsible for the safety of its citizens, and he goes above and beyond to just not fucking care about the safety of its citizens. I mean, even to a point to where he puts his own family in danger against what his chief of police is telling him, and this apparently respected professional like oceanographer is telling him, like, this dude came in because you hired
he was
him.
himself touting.
Yeah, and he still just disregards all of this. And
as soon as Fauci comes in and tells him, Cooper comes in and tells him what he doesn't want to hear, he just ignores him.
And then he takes no responsibility for what happens after he does so. So pathetic.
Yeah, I'd also say it's pretty pathetic for him to let Brody take, like the brunt of like the mom.
That's
like that.
Okay, that's a great
pathetic.
point.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
So
he very much undercuts Brody at every turn and forces blame on Brody at every, like, the buck does not stop here. This is not what this guy wants. Every shit stain to go on somebody else and every accolade to go to him. So yeah, okay,
all right,
I'll
we
give you
booked
that.
them, boys.
That's our Cooter.
For
Cooter
sure.
of the week,
Easy
the
book.
mayor.
And
really,
like, I'll give him the attire, but to be honest, like, I'd wear that blazer. Just I would,
dude,
especially on
I
the
want
4th.
that blazer. I'm not gonna lie
On
to
the
you.
4th,
I'm wearing that to my wedding.
I mean,
you would be roasted.
I wouldn't be in a suit. I'd be wearing like a tank top, swim shorts,
okay.
and then the blazer.
Well, I mean, that's fine.
I just want to see Rob like totally red in the face, clearly having a fucking heat stroke, wearing that suit.
I'm fine.
That's what I want to see.
I'm having a great time. I'm fine.
On the sand, damn.
Are you guys enjoying the beach? It's really hot out here. Right?
Just get in the water. It's fine.
Ooh.
Turns
All
into
right.
Paul Lind. I love
Yeah.
it.
That's happened a couple times on this show.
Yeah. We booked
Get
him.
them troops.
We booked the mayor. It's time to let our hair down. It's the social hour. We're talking what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
That guy's got such a particular like voice and way of speaking.
I love it so much. Like
Yeah.
it's no wonder he was so fucking famous in his day.
Yeah.
I'll be all right. Randy, what you been watching this week?
So yeah, I've watched a few things this week, but not a ton of things. We've had visitors from out of town. So I rewatched the Blues Brothers. You guys seen the Blues Brothers, right? I know, Rob, you have.
Oh, yeah.
So you watched it with us, or did you watch it on your own?
I don't know if I've watched it with y'all or not, but I have seen it.
That movie is so fucking silly. I love it so much. And like, especially as time has gone on, I've more and more appreciated the music in that movie. Like I appreciated it as a teenager or whatever, but I didn't really know who John Lee Hooker was. Like I didn't know like just how unlikely of a pairing it was to have a couple of fucking white dudes from SNL have all of these amazing fucking blues and R&B musicians in their fucking movie. Ray Charles is in this goddamn movie. Aretha fucking Franklin is fucking, it sings respect in this movie. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, musically, this movie is unbelievable. And it's like kind of a dry, silly, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's things that I will never, ever stop laughing at about this movie, like Henry Gibson as the Illinois Nazi leader who gets coerced, essentially, by the Blues Brothers' lack of respect for the laws of physics into flying off of an overpass, which then places them somehow above the Sears Tower, where it careens to the earth. It is the funniest, most nonsensical shit I ever seen. The nun in this movie, the penguin, is so funny. She just beats the shit out of these dudes. It's very, very funny. I love it. I watched some internet comment etiquette, which I've recommended before. I still recommend. It's a YouTube channel. It's very funny. Check it out. I got access to NBC's Peacock this week, which allowed me to watch the WCW Great American Bash 1997.
Wow.
Which was a huge nostalgic throwback for me, involving matches between Ultimo Dragon and Psychosis, The Outsiders versus Ric Flair and Roddy Piper, DDP versus Randy Savage. It was a fucking brilliant night. I loved watching that. I watched it all on my own, and I can't imagine there's a ton of people that are agreeing with me on this, but the ones who are, they know who they are, and God bless you. And then finally, I watched the first of 2 free episodes of a show, and I don't know where it originated, but it's on YouTube, the first 2 episodes of a show called, I think it's called Kevin Can Fuck Himself. And it features the girl, I don't know the actress's name, but she plays the sister in Schitt's Creek.
I haven't seen
this
that.
is a fucking, so I've only seen like a handful of episodes of Schitt's Creek, and I like it fine. It's pretty funny. But this show is very different, and it's very interesting to me. So what it is it's sort of like 2 shows in one. The first show is sort of like a classic sitcom, Honeymooners, Flintstones, sort of like, here's a fat, schlubby, in this case, Bostonian dude who loves to rage and party, who's married to an unexpectedly attractive and fastidious woman who he's constantly just dealing with his bullshit. And it's just like a 3-camera sitcom. With the laugh track, the whole shebang. And then when his wife leaves the room, who is played by that actress who I mentioned, it follows her instead of him. And the entire cadence of the show completely shifts to a single camera drama or dramatic dark comedy where she is just struggling with being married to the most selfish, narcissistic piece of shit and being constantly denigrated by everyone in her life. And it's just like, it's a really fucking interesting concept. She is just like fucking, she really wants to stand by her guy, and she wants to be like, put up with his bullshit, but his bullshit is like shit. Like, instead of having an anniversary dinner with his fucking wife, he wants to have his annual anniversary of the wedding reception where he got drunk with all his friends and have a fucking party or whatever. And it's like it's like an incredibly frustrating dark comedy so far. I haven't seen the second free episode, which is on the same video on YouTube. And again, I don't know where the show's going to go. I don't know what the longevity of the show could be. It seems like maybe it's a one note thing, but it is such a strong first note, and I'm very interested to see where it's going. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I think it's a fucking interesting show, and so far it's recommendable to me. That's where I'm at with what you've been watching.
Solid haul. Juice, what you been watching?
I watched the new trailer for the upcoming Sopranos prequel. Bob, did you see that?
No, I didn't know there was.
I was going to ask you. I meant to send it to you a couple times when you're on vacation. It's called The Many Saints of Newark, and actually, the guy who's playing Tony Soprano is his son.
Yeah, I knew that.
Or the actor's like real son. And so that's really cool.
Little baby Gandolfini.
Yeah. So, of course, it's a mob kind of movie, and it's set in what looks like the 70s, I believe. And the color grading is quite questionable in the trailer. It looks like it's very blue. Like teal blue.
Weird.
Yeah, look, it's very noticeable too. It's almost looks like Drive or I don't know. It's way overcolored. I don't know. It's strange.
That sucks. Okay.
Yeah, I hope they fix that before it comes out because
Yeah.
it looks very strange. So I watched that. I'm excited for it though because I got in this crazy spiral of just watching. I still don't really want to watch the show again because there's just so many like piece of shit characters.
Yeah.
But I just like watched so many fucking clips of The Sopranos that it's pretty much like I rewatched the show. So that's coming out October 1st.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I fucking
I'm
love
actually
that show.
excited about that too. I'm not going to
Yeah.
lie.
The Sopranos.
Yeah, the Sopranos prequel movie that's coming out.
I've never watched The Sopranos.
Oh, you never watched The
Like,
Sopranos?
it's
It's great. That's great.
Yeah, it's good, but it can be difficult to get through. I watched Fear Street Part 1, 1994.
How is that?
So I didn't read those books.
I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah,
How is that?
we had talked about potentially doing we can't fit it into the schedule, I don't think.
Yeah.
But
I'm probably going to watch it, so we could bonus episode.
yeah, that's what we were
maybe do a
talking
bonus
about.
episode, yeah.
Okay.
I was telling Bob before the cast, we covered a movie last year, Randy. I don't think you could be on it because we had a guest on, but it was another Netflix horror original, and it was the Vampires vs. the Bronx. And this movie has a very similar look and feel to that. They've got this kind of color palette that they're using, which almost has these bright, vibrant colors that make it look like a cheap comic book almost. It's very particular. I'm not a big fan of it. It also carries some of the vibes of the Netflix show like Sabrina, where it's more kind of, it feels definitely geared toward a younger audience. It's got this, I've said it before, like a CW kind of feel to it. It started off a little rough. It's set in the 90s, and it's weird to see that time kind of presented this way. They do this thing that's really annoying where it's like, it's the 90s, like, okay, and they start in a mall. You see like the store that's supposed to be like a Spencer's and a bookstore and stuff like that.
Oh,
but they
doubt so great.
Dude, they play 90s songs literally back to back to back to back. I mean, it is just not, they hammer that shit fucking home. It's like, it doesn't add anything. So it's really a thing where they're kind of basing it off of like, it's in the 90s, see, where it's like, give me some substance. Now, I will say, once it kind of got past that initial, like, we're in the 90s phase, then some of the story picked up and it intrigued me more. And so I'd be curious to talk about it. So I don't want to like bash on it too hard. But yeah, it's got a particular style. Like I said, I didn't read the books, so I'm not too tied to it or anything. But yeah. It does have some pretty solid spooky vibes though. I think it's set around. There's definitely Halloween costumes going on. There's some jack-o'-lanterns I see. So it might be more geared toward like getting closer to that season. It might be more appropriate feeling. So I don't know.
I wanted to add real quick. You mentioned Vampires vs. the Bronx, which is a movie we covered that Randy was not on the episode for. However, I looked up who directed it, a guy by the name of Oz Rodriguez, who also directed 2 episodes of Kevin Can Fuck Himself.
Hey,
who would have thought?
there you go, Randy.
I would not have thought.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's. It reminded me of several Netflix things. Vampires vs. the Bronx and Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, the new one that's been out or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe that's the Netflix style. If so, I'm not too crazy about it, just from a stylistic standpoint. Other than that, let me see. I started to watch Jaws 2, which I don't think I've ever seen all the way through before, and still have not finished. So hopefully I can get through it this time, but I don't know. And that was interesting just to see, how it's handled in another kind of way. It's definitely more kind of teen focused from what I've got through so far. So it's interesting so far. And then of course, there's a new Meat Canyon out that focuses on Bob the Builder, or a spoof off
yes, of course.
Bob the Builder.
Hallelujah.
And it's pretty, and actually this one's not like, a lot of his are like weirdly sexually based. This one is more horror based, and he actually has a handful. There's a Teletubbies one that's like super horror based and not sexual. This one kind of follows that. It's definitely more horror, monster based, lore based, and it's disturbing. It's quite disturbing. That guy has a talent for being really disturbing, really fucked up stuff. So yeah, that is what I've been watching. Randy, are you okay to talk about what you've been watching?
He already did. It's my turn.
Oh, Bob,
I did that.
And yes.
Are you ready to talk about what you've been watching?
Hey, thanks for paying attention. Yeah, I got to talk about this movie I watched from 2020. It's called Rent-A-Pal.
I watched that I mentioned that not long ago.
Did you? I do not recall you mentioning that, but I watched it regardless.
Rent a what?
Rent-A-Pal.
Pal.
yeah.
With what's his name?
Will
from
Wheaton.
Star Trek, right?
Will
Wheaton.
Will
Right?
Wheaton. I did not recognize him at all, but Alice was like, "Hey, that's the guy from fucking Star Trek." I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." But yeah, Will Wheaton's in this movie. It's set in 1990. It's about this guy named David. He's like 40 years old. He's taking care of his mother who has dementia. He's living in the basement of his mother's house. It's sort of like a sad, depressing scene. Like he's unable to leave her alone for long periods of time, so he can't really go hang out with friends or like meet girls or anything like that. So he starts renting tapes from this place called Rent-A-Pal. And there's, I guess it's like a video dating company. So like before there was online dating, there was like VHS tapes. You'd pop it in, you'd see like a few women on there, and they'd tell you about themselves, and then you could like, I guess, try and reach out and connect with them or whatever, and they'd watch your tape or whatever. So he's doing that, and then he like ends up renting another tape that's just like a friend on video basically, and this guy on the tape is just like one half of a conversation, like you're hanging out with your buddy, you're playing cards, you're shooting the shit, you're talking about girls, whatever, and that's on the videotape. And then David, the character, sort of like becomes dislodged from reality, and it just sort of spirals out of control. It's one of those movies that I put on not really expecting a whole lot from, and it really kind of blew me away. Will Wheaton's performance is incredible. Really? Yeah, dude, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I don't remember what your reaction to it was, Randy, but if you want to chime in, please feel free to.
No, I thought it wasn't a bad movie. I really think that it's like, it was just very depressing. True, it was kind of that's kind of where I landed on, is like, man, and I think that week I particularly just had a lineup of movies that I found pretty depressing. I can't remember what they all were, but it was just like, man, just stacking things up.
Yeah, it does sound
it's
depressing.
An interesting movie though.
It sounds like in the vein of like a Her or something.
I haven't watched Her, kinda. But it's like, yeah, it's tough to talk about why exactly it's depressing beyond its basic premise.
Yeah.
But the granular details of it really sort of drive home a loneliness angle, which is just very depressing, I guess.
Yeah. I'd recommend Rent-A-Pal, but yeah, it is a bit of a bummer. I also revisited Sleepaway Camp and Wet Hot American Summer this week because I was on
God bless
vacation and wanted to watch some summer bullshit.
Yeah.
So hit those. And also
Around
hit
here
up,
we call those movie baldies.
yeah, well, somebody might use that term, but it would not be me, Randy. Let's just
Those movies are called baldies.
let's
That's
just
what
be
they're
very,
called, right?
very, very clear here.
It might be Rob.
Negative. Exactly. That's pretty much what I've been watching this week. Without further ado, we got one more segment. It is our Hotline Scream.
Hotline Scream.
Who called us, Bob?
If you're listening and want to call and drop us a voicemail, you can do so at 904-638-3231. We got a few voicemails. First up, we're going to hear from our boy Kyle. See what he has to say.
Hey guys, Justin, Randall, Bobby. Just wanted to say hi. This is weird. This week it's just throwing me off because Friday it's get with the fam and hang out and I don't know. So I don't know. I'm just feeling alone in the world. I didn't come here for advice because I don't know. I mean, I think you guys great advice, but I just don't have anything I need advice for right now. Unless you know how to run a 3 mile under, 28 minutes, which Bob doesn't. The facts state zing. But anyways, just wanted to say hi. I have no reason, honestly, to be calling. I just wanted to say hi. I'm excited to see Jaws be reviewed. I don't know if that movie needs to really be reviewed. It's if you haven't seen Jaws, fucking A. I almost wanted something silly to win. I don't even really know the vote count because I'm not Patreon. I can't afford it. These are desperate times. But I kind of wanted old Freddie Prinze Jr. to make a run, but I don't think he's going to. And Jennifer Love Hewitt from Party of Five. But I'm excited to listen to it if it's Jaws, which I'm assuming it is. Man, it's just wanted to just check in. It's like you guys are like my parents. I just I want you to know I'm safe. Streetlights are on still. I'm gonna be home. So yeah. Bob, I don't think you owe me any cash. I think we ended up going like $55. And that was it. And Bob's going to say, I never owed him money. I never made this bet. But you did, Bob. If we had a verbal contract, I don't know if it's going to stand in court, but we had a verbal contract. So, but then again, I do owe you fucking beer. So it might be fucking balanced at this point in time. Anyways, love you guys. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you, Randy, for adding me as a friend on Facebook. I might sleep over at your house. I don't know where you're staying because you moved too much. I think you're in D.C. or somewhere, but, time to pull out the old guest room for Kylie because I might be coming by. Anyways, I'll talk.
Kyle's gonna rape you, Randy. You ready for that?
That's why I never accept friend requests on Facebook.
Look, man, this is like, it is kind of like calling your parents in that you give us a call and we're very disappointed in you. So thanks for giving us that call. No.
You can follow me on Instagram. Stay away from my Facebook.
Miles, you made it in just past the fucking buzzer because
that was Kyle.
I'm sorry, Kyle. Excuse me. Somebody said anyway. It doesn't matter.
Nobody did.
Nope.
Yeah, Kyle, you made it just in past the buzzer because really and truly, I've stopped accepting friends on Facebook, and I think I'm just giving it up entirely. So enjoy
Smart.
the wasteland that once was my Facebook.
No more friends. We don't need any more friends. Thanks for calling in, Kyle, and trying to invalidate literally everything we do here at Straight Chilling. Also, if you want to know how to run faster, just keep running. You'll get faster. Thanks for putting me on blast, dude. Send more beer. Randy, got time for one more, or you got a bolt?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we got one more. We're hearing from Simon. See what he has to say.
Hey guys, sorry I ran the last one a little long. I'll wrap this up here.
Sorry, this is a second one. Sorry. Here we go. That was a follow-up. Here's...
So Firestone stains, huh, Juice? You're going to call out a rival brand of tires? I'm literally building tires while listening to this, and you're going to talk about other people's tires. The nerve. Bob, Randy, you want some discounted tires, let me know. Juice gets him done.
Deal.
Also, I'm just coming home after a blowout. I had one Firestone tire left on my wife's car. It exploded. So now I'm on my way home after having to get towed and wait on a tow truck for 2 hours. So,
damn.
The Firestone stains are, well. Anyway, Randy said that I should call and let you guys know how we deal with our sentient psychic tires at the plant I work at. Basically, we have a bunch of guys that walk around with bats and hooks. And they have conveyor belts up above our heads with tires running on them. You see one flopping around? They pull it down with the hook, and then they jump that motherfucker and beat the hell out of it. And then they go and they put it in its execution chamber, which is a strapped-in hydraulic press with a guillotine blade on it, which is actually how we deal with scrap tires. Is we just cut them in half. It's a really fun cast. Sorry you guys didn't really enjoy the movie, but looking forward to next week's episode. Keep chilling.
Damn, don't trust us.
I tried to stop him. Man, but Soju, he's got a mind of his own, man. He's just going to run that mouth, baby. Yeah. He's just going to go for it.
Don't trust those Firestones. Also, do you guys know what brand of tire Simon actually makes?
This episode is brought to you by Goodyear Tire.
Goodyear, all right. That's
I don't know.
Is that right? Okay, I didn't know. It's the best brand,
I don't know
it is.
what kind of tires you make, my guy.
It's the best brand that I now have a discount of.
Exactly.
Yeah, at least they're not Firestones. You won't be blowing out your ass.
That's wild,
blow
man.
out your ass.
Sorry about your ass being blown out there. Your fire ass being blown clean out,
Simon.
Yeah, that's rough. Juice, I don't know, buddy. Sorry about your luck.
Sorry, can't get them tires.
Goodyear.
Some guys got it.
Goodyear, they don't fuck
the
around.
discount.
They fucking cut you in half when you act up, son. Simon,
Hydraulically.
hope you're doing well. Again, if you're listening and like to call in and leave us a voicemail, hit us up at 904-638-3231. I'd say next week, call in, let us know if you got any crazy stories at the beach or at the lake, water-related stories that you'd like to share.
Did Jaws
Scar
traumatize
stories.
you?
Give us your scar story.
yeah.
Give us your. That's a great. Yeah, tell us your scar stories.
Yeah, that works.
Soju for the win.
I got a few.
Yeah,
we'll go over it when we're on the next app.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
We're around table, drinking, showing our scars.
Well, adieu to you fair Spanish ladies.
Thank you.
Well, and adieu to you ladies of Spain.
Next week, we got a new show. Next week, we're going to be getting into the new Patreon picks. First up, we're talking about Blood and Lace from 1971. This was chosen by Luke. Slam your eyeballs into that before next week. I believe it is streaming on Amazon Prime, so you can get it there pretty easily. Blood and Lace, 1971. Until next week, Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join in on the daily Slack channel conversations, let us know on one of those social media outlets, and I'll send you a link to join in on the Slack channel fun. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so never more shall we see you again.